When I was in middle school, I thought my life was over. Now, I know what you're thinking. Everyone thinks their life is over at age 12. For me, it went a lot deeper than your typical tween drama. I had a lot going on in my head, from family issues to feeling left out to conquering a new big building you all know as Mineola Middle School. When weekly meetings with my school guidance counselor weren't enough, all of the stress weighing on me converged into a huge panic attack in the middle of my school gym during a game of six bases. Little did I know that some of the same sports being played in that gym would be practically saving me from myself not too long after that. Now, I grew up in a family full of sports fans. My dad raised me on the New York Rangers and the New York Mets, and I couldn't be more thankful for that. The sense of community and togetherness that comes with being a sports fan is near indescribable. Suiting up in your favorite player's jersey, rushing up to your seat, and cheering along with thousands of people who feel the same passion as you is an experience that I think everyone should get a taste of. However, in the beginning, professional sports had always just been a thing that kind of existed in life for me. Being a sports fan is practically a part of my family's culture as much as a special recipe or yearly tradition might be for another group of relatives. My dad was practically ready to write hockey and baseball fan on my birth certificate before Jennifer Moglia was even printed on it. From him, I learned that former New York Mets captain David Wright was going to single-handedly save his franchise from folding, and former New York Rangers captain Ryan Callahan was a snake who only cared about money, but my knowledge ended somewhere around there. To be quite honest, I was afraid of sports. I had thought to myself countless times, what's the point in trying to follow this if I can't even hit a ball on my own? I thought the two were mutually exclusive, which isn't unusual for a girl in junior high trying to figure out who she is. On top of it all, where did being a sports fan put me on this weird, twisted social ladder that existed in our school? Would I become an insufferable tomboy and be left out even more than I already was? Would all the boys want to talk to me now and not the popular girls? Like any decision made by somebody in middle school, I put a disproportionate amount of thought into this. But looking back, I realized that I never chose to become a sports fan. It seemed to choose me. And around the same time that my first ever panic attack in gym class shook my world, and I started seeing a therapist. I was coincidentally wearing a Ranger shirt at my first appointment, Lanquista number 30 on the back. When I was diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder, I got to work at learning how to live with it. My therapist basically told me that the panic attacks were here to stay, at least for a little while. She was totally right about. And that middle school stress would only get worse, which I'm sure you all can confirm she was totally right about. One of the first pieces of advice that she gave me was to try to find some things I could use as coping mechanisms for the anxiety. She emphasized the importance of finding a safe haven, somewhere to run away to when the real world tried to trigger the anxious parts of my brain and body. My first attempt at finding this safe haven wasn't even a deliberate one. The New York Rangers game was on that night, a playoff matchup between them and the Tampa Bay Lightning. Now, I got beyond absorbed in this game. I can still vividly remember myself sitting at the foot of my mother's bed with my eyes darting back and forth following the puck across the ice on the TV screen. Now, Rangers didn't win that game. It actually knocked them out of the playoffs that year, but that didn't matter to me. All that mattered was that this game had kept me occupied and not focused on whatever was stressing me out for a solid 3 hours of my night, and I went to sleep feeling at peace, not in pieces, for the first time in a really long time. Soon enough, all of the little quirks and qualities that came with being a sports fan started to mean something to me. I was wearing jerseys and player t-shirts everywhere that I could, watching games all the time. I had special notifications programmed to be sent to my phone when a big piece of National Hockey League news broke, special alerts for the Rangers. And before I knew what the offsides penalty meant or who all 30 teams' captains were, I knew that this sport was keeping me from being alone with my thoughts at night, and I was so thankful for that. Now, my fanatic status grew when baseball season kicked off, coincidentally, this time of year, right? Still needing a distraction from the middle schoolers' worries, even over the summer, I spent the second half of 2015 falling in love with the New York Mets and a certain formerly long-haired pitcher. You guys might know him. When this group of ragtag, nobody players made it to the World Series, becoming nationally champions, it felt symbolic to me. Nobody thought that the Mets could do it. Nobody thought that Jacob deGrom could do it. But hey, I thought to myself, if this team that everyone looked down on could create this great upset and accomplish what seemed impossible, why couldn't I? Watching that banner raise on that following opening day felt like a victory for me, not just my favorite team. We had both made it through the darkest of nights to see the brightest of stars start to shine for us. And after that Mets World Series run in 2015, I had a huge metamorphosis. I started talking about my anxiety and what caused it, not keeping it all bottled up. I started talking about my experiences and sharing my knowledge with others to try to raise awareness, and soon enough, I decided it was time to start thanking these people for all they had done for me. And my incredible, flexible mother and I got into the car and drove off to Paramus, New Jersey on a school night to meet former New York Rangers Matt Zuccarello and Derek Brassard. There's baby Jen. Getting to stand in front of these two people who had practically saved me without even knowing it, and getting to tell them that, it finally felt like I was making progress. Of course, they were incredibly sweet to me, holding my hand over the table when I started shaking and making jokes to try to calm me down. And that night, after I got in the car, I cried for the entire 2-hour drive home because I just couldn't believe that I had done it. I had done one of the most anxiety-inducing things for me on purpose, and it felt like heaven. I needed more of it. And since that night, a lot has changed. I have grown a few inches, I've moved to an even bigger school here, and I'm doing better than ever mentally and emotionally. Through watching and starting to follow sports, I conquered adversity in my own mind, and I found some places that feel like home to me. Through going to games, I've met so many amazing friends. I've met and thanked more players than I can count. And I even have 2 writing jobs now, where I get to chase my dreams and talk about these amazing communities and sports that have done so much for me. All of that seemed impossible just a few short years ago, and at some points, I genuinely believed that it was. Learning to play nice with your mental illness is a very difficult process, but I'm glad that becoming a sports fan, regardless of being possibly the world's most unathletic human, is a trait that I picked up along the way. Learning to open up and accept help is one of the most amazing things you will do in your lifetime. As Wayne Gretzky said, you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take, and taking the shot has changed my life. Thank you, and good night.